This is from the New York Post. I'll just show the audience. Cashing in on mayhem is the title. That's exactly right. And there's a piece by the editorial board talking about how if you're in favor of this, what you don't understand is that the protesters went out there looking for problematic interactions with the cops. They were not innocent victims, mindless or minding their own business, protesting lawfully within the bounds of the written code. No, they were shit stirrers, professional shit stirrers who went out there looking for trouble. Carol, they got it, and now we're paying them $6 million.
Yeah, I was living in New York during those protests, what I call like the social justice at Prada protests of 2020. And it was really a terrifying time to be there. It was just mayhem. Like you said, they were destroying property, breaking windows, and all the people around them were kind of like, yeah, this is what they have to do because this happened. And this is, this kind of destruction is just sort of what we should be expecting. And the thing is that nobody talks about how hard those days were for cops. It was still, at the height of COVID, where we didn't know what was going on with that. It wasn't such a clear cut, like this isn't that big a threat to us. And they had to be out there policing and fighting back against this with very minimal community support from New Yorkers. It was just an extremely tough time. BLM signs were everywhere. Defund police signs were everywhere. Obviously, in all the like $4 million brownstones in my neighborhood, all had the defund police signs. And it was just a really trying time for police, most of whom, or many of whom, have left New York and gone elsewhere since then.
This is from the article. New York protesters were called to action this day, this is right after George Floyd. It was early June of 2020, by two activist groups who taunted the NYPD with a flyer of a burning cop van and incendiary phrases that encouraged demonstrators to break the 8 p.m. curfew that had been imposed in the city in the days prior because of what had been going on with these protests. It was no mystery. They went out there, Bethany, wanting trouble. And what happened to them? Was it some awful, a terrible beatdown by the cops? Here's the description. The cities agreed to shell out $21,500 to each of the more than 300 protesters who were confined and some hit by batons or pepper sprayed by the NYPD officers in the Bronx during the George Floyd demonstrations. So, by the way, it's like you were confined by officers for maybe 10 minutes in some cases. Like some of these were short. And if you were unlawfully charged with a crime after being confined, you're going to get an additional $2,500. You know what that means? We're going to get an additional set of protesters looking to stir things up with the cops, endangering the communities the cops protect. On the next incident, you name it, doesn't have to be as big as George Floyd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the message should be F around and find out. And instead, it's F around and get a payout. I mean, I would love to sign up for $21K to have a zip tie around my wrists for 20 minutes. Yeah. And I think most people would sign up for $20K for 20 minutes. And so this really incentivizes absolute anarchy the next time and the next time and the next time. And, price of inflation, maybe it'll be $30K next time. There is absolutely no reason not to go for broke. And this is a really, really bad message that all of these professional protesters, you're absolutely right. Like if you've been to a New York protest, when I was in my teens, I was on the other side of it. And these are literally professional protesters. These are kids who live in those $4 million brownstones and then go out and protest against whatever the cause du jour is, whether it's George Floyd or Palestine or the Iraq War, it all blends together. And I mean, if you harken back to the Occupy Wall Street days, I mean, it's all the same stuff.
The Post goes on. The police vehicles were burned. A couple of lawyers were caught with Molotov cocktails. Cops were spat upon, slurred as pigs. Yeah. Here's your money. Here, you get 20 grand for lighting a cop car on fire and calling the cop a pig. Welcome to New York, the big city of dreams. And the thing is, you're right. Yes, so many are professional protesters. They loved being in the news. They loved sowing chaos. Just as an aside, I'll tell you something funny. My mom, when I was on Fox, she's like not a big news person, but she would always watch my show. She's not like a big news consumer. She's recently been turned on to Tucker Carlson. She knows we're friends. She's recently been turned on to Tucker. She's like, I really think he's interesting. I find his reports about FIFA really interesting. I'm like, FIFA? Like the soccer group? She's like, they're very troubling. I'm Like I mean, they are kind of troubling, but when was Tucker? She was like, oh, they go to all the protests and they infiltrate and they cause a lot of damage to I'm like, do you mean Antifa, Ma? Anyway, FIFA was probably at these protests too, and they're probably getting $20,000 payouts, ladies. I've had it. I would just have to talk with Senator Hawley about nothing for the Supreme Court protesters who nearly got a justice killed. Yep. No problem. The pro-life guy, he gets 20 to 30 FBI agents. The people who bomb the pro-life clinics who don't, yes, they're anti-abortion, but what they're really doing is just helping moms who choose to have their babies. That's all they're doing. They get firebombed, no prosecutions, and Merrick Garland tells them, well, they did it at night. Those crimes are a lot harder to prosecute because they happen at night. Oh my God. Like, people wonder why we're so lawless in these major cities. And the people are now rising up. Lori Lightfoot is out, and for very good reason, Bethany.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, that was so thrilling to see. And so much of it was also her COVID hypocrisy, which, was on full display during the George Floyd protests in New York as well. People have completely had it with authority of any kind. I signed my daughter up for summer camp this summer, and on the application it said, the last 2 years have been very trying for children. How has your child fared? We've been seeing a lot of mental health issues, and I wrote in that section, she has developed a very healthy distrust of authority, and that's the lesson of the last 3 years is, let's send these folks packing. And Lori Lightfoot's out. And I'd love to see, the same thing happen in New York. I'm also born and raised in New York. And I left when Bill de Blasio came in because it was obvious it was going to go this way.
So you've heard me talk about Bonner Private Wine Partnership, right? They have these incredibly rare Malbecs that you've got to try. If you enjoy a glass of wine, try these wines from the extreme altitudes of Argentina. The flavor's unlike any other. Blackberry, leather, smoke, little dark cherry in there. And these wines are nearly impossible to get on your own. The producers deep in the Andes Mountains make limited quantities. The best part, they have cut out the middleman, so you are not going to deal with a big markup. Today, we have a great offer for you. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get the wine for over 50% off plus free shipping, you'll also get a bonus bottle of small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3. It's a deal that's hard to turn down if you're a wine lover like I am. Just visit Bonner, BONNER, privatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.